So an Irish lesbian walks into a shrink's office. She begins. I need your help. I'm a go-getter. Everyone looks to me for support. I've gone over the edge. I was just hired to run a national gay rights organization, and now I feel completely responsible for all the gays. For those of us who work with and for nonprofits, we get this. It seems like every decision matters. At least that's how it felt to this Irish lesbian on that day. Think about it. When you're trying to save even a small part of the world, there's no margin for error. A father and a toddler will sleep on a subway if the legal aid organization doesn't get the check to the landlord on time. A battered woman will have no escape if the shelter down the street doesn't have enough money for marketing. She'll have nowhere to go. It's big stuff. So here's how I think about the intensity level of a typical corporate job. Some peaks, some valleys, and a few lulls for good measure. But take a job in the nonprofit space and see the difference. Feel the difference. I lived in the land of this red line for a decade as the executive director of GLAAD. With an intensity my staff referred to using a Starbucks metaphor. How's Joan today? Steer clear, she's a venti. It all came to a head one afternoon in Chicago. My development director, Julie, arrived from the West Coast, walked in, and I see wires protruding. We notice. And she says, don't worry, Joan. It's just a heart monitor. I'm having some heart issues. All right, so what do you think I did? I sent her home, right? She got on the next plane to LA, right? No, nothing happened. And by the way, it was a great board meeting. And fortunately, Julie didn't die. I refer to that from there on as the time I almost killed my development director. And after that, I became conscious that my leadership and management style was actually making people sick. And so I learned 3 valuable lessons from all of this that I'd like to share with you. Lesson number 1, give your staff permission to juggle poorly. To juggle poorly. You're always going to be handed too many balls to juggle in a nonprofit. So the goal isn't to keep them all in the air. The goal is to make intentional choices about which ones to drop. To work as a team, to accept failure, and to prioritize. Lesson number 2, be a real live person. So after the heart monitor incident, we had a board meeting, and my ASIN, my IT director, was in the middle of a rather boring IT presentation when all of a sudden this image appears. Out of nowhere, please say hello to William, Peyton, Harry, and William. And when everyone stopped laughing, something happened. There was focus. We got more done. And from there on in, I encouraged pets in all my board presentations. Look, in the corporate world, of course it matters to ask your staff and your colleagues about their weekends and their pets. Yes, of course it matters. But in the nonprofit world, it feels non-negotiable. Third and lastly, be a champion of joy and purpose. The Harvard Business Review and the Energy Project, which works with companies to improve productivity and engagement, partnered on a study to understand what influences engagement in the workplace. The single most important influence? Purpose. People who drive meaning and significance from their jobs are 3 times more likely to be engaged in their work and to stay put. And so, my fellow nonprofit warriors, we're wearing the ruby slippers. Because our work is about purpose. So take your role as champion seriously because it matters. Create opportunities to engage your staff at every single level. Have them be touched by the work you do. You would not think twice about putting a donor on a truck to deliver produce to a food pantry, but would it ever cross your mind to put the receptionist on that truck? The person who greets every person who comes through the door? Think about the impact of that on your receptionist and the people who come through the door. You know, once upon a time, I might have been a venti who saw nothing wrong with a staff member wearing a heart monitor. But I really do hope that what they felt was the privilege and the sense of joy that I had about the work that I do. Because it is that privilege and that joy that will sustain you, enrich you, and enable you to do the very best work you can for the stakeholders and clients who deserve nothing less.